Most people will not run out of food when disaster strikes. They will run out of the right food, and that difference will cost them everything. Prices at the grocery store keep climbing. Supply chains have already snapped more than once, and all it takes is one serious disruption for store shelves to go completely bare, not in days, but in hours. The pace of collapse is faster than almost anyone anticipates. Here is the part that catches people off guard. You could have a full month of calories sitting in your pantry and still find yourself in serious trouble. Miss just one critical element for a handful of days, and the whole system starts to fall apart. Your body does not announce the problem immediately. You keep eating, you keep functioning, but somewhere between 1 and 2 weeks in, things start sliding in ways you cannot immediately explain. Fatigue sets in and refuses to leave. Tasks that used to feel routine suddenly demand more effort than they should. Not because you are starving, you are not, but because your body is running on the wrong fuel mix. One item on this list, number 7, will not make you feel full at all. It does not add bulk to a meal or satisfy a growling stomach. But without it, the energy your body depends on cannot move through your system correctly. Most people skip it entirely when they're building a stockpile. They only understand what they missed after the consequences show up. And by that point, fixing the mistake takes time most people will not have. The lesson is hard, but simple. You do not fail in a crisis because you have nothing. You fail because you prepared the wrong things. So here's the list. 10 foods that belong in any serious preparedness stockpile. Why each one earns its place, and what happens to people who leave them out. Number 10. Rice. Let us be clear about something from the start. When a disruption hits, a storm, a supply failure, a regional emergency, the first items to vanish from store shelves are always the basics, not the specialty products, not the niche items, the basics. And rice is almost always the first to go. A 25-pound bag of rice holds more than 40,000 calories. That number matters, but it is not the most important thing rice offers. What rice truly provides is time. When everything around you becomes uncertain and chaotic, time is the most valuable thing you can possess. You can prepare a bowl of rice in minutes, but used wisely, with portion discipline and a calm mindset, that same supply can carry a household for weeks. In any genuine crisis, the gap between a few minutes and several weeks is the gap between panic and control. This is not speculation. History has repeated this pattern every time infrastructure breaks down, every time transportation routes get severed, every time communities are cut off from normal supply. People do not reach for complicated recipes. They reach for the simplest thing that will keep them upright another day. Rice does that. You don't even need much to make it work. Water and a small amount of salt can stretch a rice supply far longer than most people believe. But here's the mistake that trips up even well-intentioned preppers. They fill a shelf with rice and consider the job finished. It is not finished, not even close. Rice gives you calories. Calories matter enormously, but calories alone cannot hold your body together over an extended period. Without adequate protein and without key micronutrients, the body begins to quietly deteriorate. Immune function weakens, energy output drops. Simple physical tasks become exhausting in ways that feel confusing because you are still eating. There is also a storage problem that people underestimate. Rice exposed to moisture, oxygen, or insects can be destroyed far faster than expected. One careless storage decision can wipe out an entire supply. Sealed properly, airtight containers, oxygen absorbers, a cool, dry location, rice can last for decades. Stored carelessly, it can be worthless in a season. Rice is the foundation, but a foundation without walls around it will not protect you. That's why the next item exists. Number 9. Dry beans. Surviving a crisis is not just about avoiding hunger. It's about keeping your body functional enough to handle what the crisis actually demands. That's the distinction most people miss when they build a food stockpile. They plan for calories. They do not plan for strength. Protein is what maintains muscle. Protein is what keeps your immune system operating. Protein is what allows your body to repair itself after the physical stress that any serious emergency creates. Remove it for just a few weeks and the damage becomes visible. Muscle mass declines faster than most people expect. Energy levels fall. Reaction times slow. For older adults or anyone with an existing health condition, this process accelerates significantly.
The body is losing it constantly through sweat, and if it is not being replaced, the decline accelerates. Salt does something else that has enormous practical value in a crisis. It preserves food. That function does not disappear in a modern emergency. If you have
What might take younger people 3 weeks to notice can show up in older adults within days. Think about the real picture. Power is out. Fresh food is gone. What remains is whatever you stored. A pot of beans combined with rice at that moment is not just a meal, it is medicine. It is maintenance for a body under serious stress. Each serving of dry beans delivers roughly 15 grams of protein, comparable to a small portion of meat, but far more practical to store long term. Beans also help stabilize energy levels in a way that refined foods cannot, avoiding the sharp rise and crash cycle that leaves people feeling worse than before they ate. There is one preparation detail that trips people up, though. Dry beans require significant cooking time. In normal circumstances, that is a minor inconvenience. In a crisis scenario where fuel is limited and time is pressured, it can become a serious problem. The solution is simple, but requires thinking ahead. Pre-soaking beans dramatically reduces cooking time. Having a backup cooking method that does not depend on standard infrastructure removes another variable. These are small decisions that cost almost nothing to make in advance, but become enormously valuable when the pressure is on. Beans sit between rice and everything else on this list. They close the gap that rice alone leaves open. But even with calories and protein covered, there is still a gap, one that gets exposed in moments when there is simply no time to cook anything at all. Number 8. Canned meat. Preparation is not just about what you store, it's about what you can actually use when conditions are at their worst. Here's the real scenario. The power has been out for hours, the space is dark, your mind is carrying stress from a dozen directions at once. You need to eat. You have rice, you have beans, but both of those require time, heat, and effort you may not have right now. This is exactly where canned meat earns its place. No stove required, no electricity, no preparation time. You open the container and within seconds you're eating. A single can of meats or fish provides somewhere between 20 and 25 grams of protein alongside several hundred calories. Enough to stabilize your energy, enough to keep your thinking from deteriorating under pressure. In a high-stress situation, mental clarity is not a luxury, it is a survival asset. When your blood sugar drops and your protein runs low, decision-making becomes compromised in ways you won't always recognize in the moment. You will feel foggy without knowing why. Canned meat prevents that from happening. Consider what this means for anyone who is older, unwell, or simply exhausted. When your body is running below its normal capacity, the act of preparing a cooked meal can feel like an enormous burden. Canned meat eliminates that burden completely. Open, eat, continue. There is one additional detail worth noting. The liquid inside most canned meat products has value beyond flavor. It reduces your water consumption requirement for that meal. In a situation where water is rationed and every liter matters, that small detail compounds into real savings over time. Stockpiling canned meat requires some discipline. Check dates consistently, rotate the supply so the oldest cans get used first, inspect cans before storage, and discard any that show damage. In a crisis, you cannot afford to discover a problem with your food supply after you needed it. Canned meat handles the moments when everything is immediate and urgent. But once that immediate need is addressed, there's another layer of preparation most people have never thought about, something that has nothing to do with calories and everything to do with staying calm when calm is the hardest thing to hold on to. Number 7. Salt. This is the item on the list that won't fill your stomach, and yet it might be the single most important thing you can store. Your body depends on sodium for functions that have nothing to do with taste. Nerve signals travel through sodium. Muscle contractions, including your heart, depend on it. Fluid balance throughout every system of your body is regulated in part by sodium levels. These are not optional processes. They are fundamental to staying alive and functional. When sodium runs low, the body doesn't send an obvious warning. There is no alarm.
What happens instead is a slow, quiet decline that feels like general weakness, like confusion, like a fog that will not lift. People in that state often assume they're simply tired or stressed. They don't connect it to what they are or aren't eating. The frightening part is how quickly this can develop without access to proper nutrition. In physically demanding conditions, carrying supplies, managing a shelter, performing any kind of labor, sodium gets depleted faster than under normal circumstances.
The body is losing it constantly through sweat, and if it is not being replaced, the decline accelerates. Salt does something else that has enormous practical value in a crisis. It preserves food. Before refrigeration existed, salt was how civilizations kept food from spoiling. That function does not disappear in a modern emergency. If you have protein sources, fish, meat, vegetables, salt can extend their usable life significantly without any technology required. A small container of salt costs almost nothing. It takes up almost no space. It lasts indefinitely when stored properly. And yet most food stockpiles do not include nearly enough of it. Do not make that mistake. Salt is not optional. It is infrastructure. Number 6, rolled oats. There is a specific kind of exhaustion that sets in when every meal tastes the same and costs the same amount of effort to prepare. It is not physical exhaustion. It is a kind of dull psychological drain that slowly erodes your motivation and discipline. In a prolonged crisis, that drain is dangerous. Rolled oats solve several problems at once. They require almost no preparation. They need only water and basic heat to become a complete, filling meal. They deliver complex carbohydrates that release energy slowly and consistently, rather than in a sharp spike followed by a crash, and they provide a genuinely different texture and experience from rice-based meals, which matters more than most people expect when variety becomes scarce. 1 cup of rolled oats contains roughly 300 calories, a meaningful amount of fiber, and a small but real dose of protein. For someone managing energy carefully over an extended period, that combination is extremely useful. The fiber alone has significant value. It supports digestive function, which tends to be one of the first systems to struggle when diet quality drops and stress increases. Oats also store exceptionally well. In airtight, moisture-free containers, they can last well over a decade. And because they are so lightweight relative to their caloric value, they are efficient to store in large quantities without requiring significant space. Oats will not single-handedly carry a food supply, but as part of a complete stockpile, they fill a gap that neither rice nor beans can fill alone, providing quick preparation, consistent energy, and a welcome break from the monotony that becomes its own kind of threat in a long emergency. Number 5, cooking oil. Calories are not all equal. The density of fat, the number of calories packed into a small volume, has no real competition among macronutrients. A single tablespoon of cooking oil contains roughly 120 calories. That is a remarkable amount of energy in a very small package. In a survival context, this density matters enormously. When food supplies are limited and physical demands are high, fat becomes critical. It supports hormone production. It allows the body to absorb fat-soluble vitamins that cannot be used without it. And it makes everything you cook taste significantly better, which, as already discussed, has a real impact on whether people actually eat consistently and properly. Olive oil, coconut oil, and vegetable oil all have legitimate places in a preparedness stockpile, each with different shelf life profiles and different properties when used for cooking. Olive oil kept in a cool, dark location can last 1 to 2 years. Coconut oil, with its high saturated fat content, can remain stable for several years under similar conditions. Beyond nutrition, oil has practical uses in a crisis that extend past the kitchen. It can serve as a fuel source for simple lamps. It can be used to preserve metal tools against rust. These secondary uses have genuine value when modern conveniences are no longer available. Most stockpiles treat oil as an afterthought, a bottle included almost accidentally rather than intentionally. That is a mistake.
Fat is a macronutrient, and macronutrients require the same deliberate planning as every other component of a crisis food supply. Number 4. Honey. Honey is one of the only foods on Earth with a genuinely unlimited shelf life when stored correctly. Archaeological teams have recovered honey from ancient tombs thousands of years old and found it still edible. That level of stability is remarkable and practically significant. Beyond preservation, honey delivers fast, accessible energy in a form the body can use almost immediately, pure glucose and fructose, requiring almost no digestion before entering the bloodstream. In a moment of acute energy deficit, after significant physical exertion, during illness, or in any situation where eating a full meal is not possible, honey can serve as a rapid stabilizer. Honey also has antimicrobial properties that have been documented extensively.
In situations where medical supplies are limited, it has a long history of application for wound management and infection prevention. This is not folk medicine. It is a recognized property of the compound structure of honey that prevents bacterial growth. The psychological value should not be dismissed either. Sweetness is one of the first things people lose in a crisis diet. The brain registers its absence. Meals start to feel more like obligation than nourishment. A small amount of honey added to an otherwise plain meal does not just improve flavor, it changes the experience of eating in a way that keeps people engaged with their nutrition rather than avoiding it. One sealed jar stored in a dark, stable environment needs no special care and will last longer than almost any other item in your stockpile. That kind of resilience earns its place. Number 3. Nutritional yeast. This is the item most people have never heard of and almost no one thinks to stockpile. It may also be the item that determines whether your mind stays clear in a crisis or gradually loses the edge you need to make good decisions. Here is the mechanism. B vitamins are involved in virtually every step of energy metabolism. They are the system your body uses to convert what you eat into fuel your cells can actually use. Without sufficient B vitamins, particularly B1, B2, B3, B6, and B12, your body is essentially a vehicle with a full tank that cannot process the fuel correctly. The calories are there, the conversion is broken. The symptoms of B vitamin deficiency do not announce themselves dramatically. They arrive quietly. In the first days, you might feel slightly less sharp than normal, a little slower to process information, mildly fatigued in a way that seems easily explained by stress or poor sleep. Nothing alarming. But after 2 to 3 weeks without adequate intake, the picture changes. Cognitive fog thickens, decision-making slows in ways that become noticeable even to yourself. Irritability increases, emotional regulation becomes more difficult. And because you are still eating, because you are still consuming calories every day, you do not connect the problem to nutrition. You assume it is stress. You assume it will pass. It will not pass until the underlying deficiency is addressed. A person who prepared carefully, who had plenty of food stored, who was eating regularly, once described exactly this experience during a difficult period. Meals were consistent, supply was not the issue. But after several weeks, clarity was harder to hold on to. Memory became less reliable. Processing speed dropped. The solution turned out to be small and inexpensive, a few spoonfuls of nutritional yeast added to meals each day. Within a short period, the fog began lifting. The connection became undeniable. Nutritional yeast is not a primary food source. It will not fill you up or form the base of any meal, but it contains a remarkable concentration of B vitamins in a form the body absorbs well. It stores easily. It has a pleasant, slightly savory flavor that blends into a wide range of foods without dominating them. And it addresses the kind of failure that does not show up on a calorie count, the quiet, invisible kind that costs you your mental edge exactly when you need it most. Number 2. Dried spices.
A well-stocked preparedness pantry can keep a person alive for months, but alive and actually functional are not the same thing. And one of the most overlooked factors in long-term crisis nutrition is whether you will consistently eat what you have stored. This is a real psychological phenomenon, not a minor inconvenience. In the early days of a crisis, appetite holds up reasonably well. You are eating on schedule, you are consuming enough. But when the same flavors repeat meal after meal, day after day, something subtle begins to shift in the brain. You start delaying meals without a clear reason, eating faster and less mindfully, occasionally skipping a meal simply because the thought of eating the same thing again generates no appetite response. None of this feels like a serious problem in the moment, but the compounding effect is dangerous. A reduction of even 20 to 30% in daily caloric intake spread over 1 to 2 weeks is enough to produce measurable physical and cognitive decline. You are not starving, you are simply underfueling day after day because your brain has stopped signaling hunger in response to food it finds monotonous. Dried spices break that cycle. They do not add calories, they do not add protein or fat or carbohydrates. What they add is variety. A completely different flavor profile applied to the same base ingredients, rice, beans, oats, creates a meal that feels different enough for the brain to register it as a new experience. Appetite returns. Eating becomes something other than a mechanical obligation. The effect sounds minor.
The consequence of ignoring it is not minor. Consistent daily nutrition over an extended period matters more than total food volume. You can have 6 months of food stored and still fall apart nutritionally if your eating rhythm collapses in the first 2 weeks. A small collection of dried spices, salt, pepper, cumin, chili, garlic powder, oregano, takes up almost no space, costs almost nothing, and lasts for years in sealed containers. The return on that investment, measured in maintained appetite and consistent caloric intake during a crisis, is enormous. Are you confident your eating habits would stay intact day after day under sustained stress, or would they start to erode quietly before you even noticed what was happening? Number 1. Water. Every item on this list matters, but this one is in a category entirely its own. You can survive for weeks, possibly longer, without food. The human body has remarkable capacity to endure caloric deprivation, but without water, the timeline collapses to approximately 3 days. Under heat, physical exertion, or significant stress, that window shrinks further. This is not a guideline or a general principle, it is a hard biological boundary. Water does not just quench thirst, it is involved in almost every process your body runs. Brain function depends on it. Circulation depends on it. Temperature regulation depends on it. The ability to remain alert, to think clearly, to stay in control of your own responses, all of it degrades rapidly when water intake falls below what the body requires. The deterioration is not gradual in the way most people imagine. Within 24 hours of inadequate hydration, fatigue and mental fog appear. Within 48 to 72 hours, the situation can become medically serious with the speed that surprises people who have never experienced it. What makes this particularly dangerous is that water loss is not obvious. You are losing it continuously through breathing, through normal movement, through sweat even when you are not exerting yourself significantly. In hot conditions or during physical work, the rate of loss can reach several liters per day. Most people are not tracking that number or compensating for it. You might have 3 months of food stored. You might have every item on this list in sufficient quantity, but without water, that preparation becomes irrelevant within 3 days. Storage is the first step. Store more than you think you need. The general guidance of 1 gallon per person per day is a minimum baseline, not a comfortable target. But storage alone is not a complete plan. Containers fail. Situations extend beyond expectations. A water source that depends entirely on what is physically stored at home has a fixed endpoint. The complete answer requires a method for generating clean water when stored supplies run out. Filtration, purification tablets, knowledge of how to boil water safely with whatever heat source is available. These capabilities extend your timeline indefinitely, rather than leaving you counting down to a fixed endpoint. When you look back at this entire list, something becomes clear. None of these items are exotic. None of them are expensive or difficult to find. Rice, beans, canned meat, salt, oats, oil, honey, nutritional yeast, dried spices, water. Every single one of these can be sourced from any grocery store, in most cases for very modest cost. The barrier to building this stockpile is not access or money. The barrier is the decision to actually do it before you need it. This is the truth that separates the people who stay calm in a crisis from the people who fall apart. It is not strength, it is not experience, it is not exceptional intelligence. It is preparation done in advance when the pressure was low and the shelves were still full. A crisis does not give you a warning period. It does not offer a grace window to go gather the things you should have gathered months before. By the time most people realize they need to act, acting is already much harder than it needed to be. Start with the most critical items. Work down the list. Build the stockpile in whatever increments are realistic for your current situation. A little each week adds up faster than it seems, and the gap between having something prepared and having nothing at all is not measured in months of effort. It is often measured in just a few smart decisions made early enough to matter. Because when everything around you becomes unstable, the people who stay in control are not the ones who are the strongest or the luckiest. They are the ones who thought ahead, who stocked the right things, and who understood that the time to prepare is always before the moment you need to be prepared. If everything shifted tomorrow, how ready would you honestly say you are?
If this video helped you think through your own preparation, please give it a like and share it with someone who would benefit from it. That is what keeps my channel going. Leave a comment telling me which item on this list surprised you most. I read them all. Stay prepared.